At 7 years old, not understanding what reinvention is. I'm 7 years old, but I'm already put into a situation where I have to become somebody different. I have to grow up a little faster. I'm the man of the house, so to say. I'm having to grow up faster than I am, because that guy that I was looking up to my whole life is now in prison for a life sentence.
What you do when nobody's watching, that's really what matters, because that speaks to true character for sure.
You're literally required to reinvent yourself, or you're just gonna stay down the entire time.
There's nothing I can tell them that they cannot figure out.
For me and you to go to the next step of our life, of our business, we can't go as this person.
An entrepreneur with money, it's a very dangerous thing.
Sometimes quitting can be one of the best things you can do.
Well, first and foremost, thanks for coming on, dude. Appreciate you taking the time.
Appreciate
You definitely broke the record for the largest guest we've had. So yeah, you made me feel small. My bad. You see, we're kicking each other's feet. But Travis, what we do here at the Blueprint, bro, is we try to touch at least one life per episode. That's kind of our motto, our goal, our mantra is that we could touch one person's life in business and personally, self-development, whatever the case may be. Then we've done our job today, bro. So what we'll do is we'll walk through your journey. You know what I mean? How you have a pretty interesting story from what I know already, just talking to you for a few minutes. And the idea is that, yeah, we'll walk you through your journey. We'll go through the highs, the lows, what it takes to get to where you're at. And hopefully we'll touch that one live and provide a little bit of value to the world.
I appreciate that.
Fair
Appreciate
enough.
you having me. Yes, sir.
Awesome. So yeah, let's start in the beginning, like anything else, right? Where were you born, raised? Kind of walk me through your upbringing real quick, and then we'll go right into your journey after that.
So you said we're gonna go through the highs and the lows, but we're gonna start with the lows, man. That's where it always starts.
I think that's where the most value is really provided, you know?
No doubt. From Boston, Massachusetts originally, and moved to Atlanta. But before I moved to Atlanta, my father actually went to prison. So when I was about 7 years old, my father ended up going to prison to serve a life sentence, and that's when we figured out we was gonna migrate to Atlanta. But the reason I bring that story up is so we start talking a little more is like that was a part of my life where at 7 years old I had to reinvent myself. So I'm gonna say a lot about reinvention.
Okay.
And you'll understand why later. But at 7 years old, not understanding what reinvention is, I'm 7 years old, but I'm already put into a situation where I have to become somebody different. I have to grow up a little faster. I'm the man of the house, so to say, not realizing that, but I'm realizing like, I'm having to grow up faster than I am, because that guy that I was looking up to my whole life is now in prison for a life sentence.
Wow.
So that happens at 7. We moved to Atlanta, started falling in love with the game of basketball, played basketball my whole life, but that becomes my identity now. And if you've ever played sports growing up, everybody's going to the NBA, everybody's going to be LeBron James, and that was me. So I ended up going to play University of North Florida, Division I basketball, and did go play in pro in Finland and Slovakia, but once that was over with, and I was like, man, like I'm not making life-changing money, and I'm living in Europe, and I'm not in Spain, I'm not in the south of France.
Yeah,
man.
that's not
like,
what people think.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? I'm in Slovakia making $1,500 a month. Like, that's not the route that I see myself going. So I go back home, and next thing I know, I'm in my mom's basement playing video games at like 22 years old. And I'm just kind of like, yo, what am I doing? Like, I just, eight months ago, I was this basketball player, and now I'm in my basement and ended up at Home Depot. And I'm working Home Depot in the lumber department. And I never forget, I was always wear a hoodie over my head so people wouldn't notice me, because now I'm at the local Home Depot. So when people would see me like, oh, Trav, ain't you supposed to be in Europe? And I had every excuse in the book. Every different person had a different excuse of why I wasn't there. Right? Exactly. I'm like, oh, this happened. But in reality, I was just trying to, reinvent myself and understand who I am. So ended up going to grad school, got back on my feet, and was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to go train the best athletes in the world. I'm going to figure out a way. And eventually did end up doing that. But throughout the midst of that, I actually got married for about 3 weeks. I had an annulment. And this is one of the biggest changes in my stories, because this is when reinvention really became a thing. So imagine training the best athletes in the world, you're at the highest of the high, and you just get married for the wrong reasons, and you have an annulment in 3 to 4 weeks, and now you can't even look yourself in the mirror. Because how could you do it to somebody? How could you do it to somebody's family? How could you put your family through that? Like, why would you make this decision when at the end of the day, like, that's not who you was? So we'll speak on reinvention, but the reason I do what I do for people is because I've seen the lows. And just because no matter where you are in life, how low you are, you can always climb back out. And I think that's my biggest thing of why I speak on reinvention as a requirement, because you're literally required to reinvent yourself, or you're just going to stay down the entire time.
Dude, and you said a lot of things that I want to unpack, bro, but just jumping straight into you playing ball and then kind of that dream ending. I see that a lot with athletes where like you probably thought you were going into the NBA until eventually you really just realize you're not.
Mm-hmm.
At what point did it hit you? Was it when you were overseas? At what point did it hit you that like, okay, this basketball dream is over? At least obviously from playing as a professional player.
I mean, college, you kind of feel it, but you also get that like, yo, I'm going to go overseas and I'm going to have that story where
there's a lot of stories of guys, undrafted dudes,
you know, and then you get over there and you realize like you're slipping all over the floor and, you know, no disrespect to anybody's countries, but it's just like, there's no way you're going to be in this type of country and make your way to the NBA. It's just too big of a gap. And I started to realize that, and I was just like, I got to make a decision, you know. And a lot of people don't make the decision because they just, you know, like you said earlier, like people don't understand what overseas really is. Yeah. Like you can finagle it on Instagram, you can do all that stuff, you can do it if you want to. But I was just a realist with myself, and I was like, this is not how I envision my life going.
You think part of it was you quitting, or was it just more being realistic? Given the state of maturity you probably had at that age.
Exactly. And I think that was like, you know, the maturity started to kick in, and, you know, you fight that battle of like, yo, you're quitting something that you've been doing your whole life. And it's just like, are you finally like quitting? You know what I'm saying? But I do think there's two sides to quitting. I think a lot of people keep things going regardless of what it is, business, relationships, all types of things far too long because they're scared to quit. Yeah. But sometimes quitting can be one of the best things you can do if you have another plan that's going to take you from, you know, A to B.
Yeah, I don't think quitting and moving on are the same things. And I think, it's holding on to something that's toxic in your life, not necessarily just a relationship, but maybe the wrong career, you know, trying to make something happen. It's definitely, you're spot on with that, dude. I love that. All right, so Home Depot, all your friends and your buddies are probably coming by and they're like, what the hell are you doing here? You're making up every excuse and every story in the book. You said you decided you wanted to train athletes. That's easier said than done. You know, first and foremost, how did that decision come about? Like, what was your train of thought? And then how did you actually start executing on that? Like, how'd you get your first client? Because that's not that easy. I mean, there's plenty of D1 athletes that don't make it to the league, and all of them are not trainers. So if you could speak to that a little bit, bro, because I think that's for sure not that simple.
I think that's a great question, and there's a lot of answers in the midst of it. But I think for me, I was always like, what are you good at? You know, what is something you're good at? And I'm like, you know, I'm good around athletes. I've been an athlete. I know what it's like. I love to train. So it was just kind of like putting two and two together. So how do I get there? That was the unknown. But when I went to grad school, I started working with like the basketball team. And the way I actually got into the professional ranks was kind of like, not because I knew more than anybody, but it was the way I handled myself. I was always the person to put the dumbbells up. I was always the last one to clean up everything. I did all those little things. And it came to somebody knew somebody. And it's like, hey, look, Kyle Lowry at the time, this is like 2016, was looking for somebody. And I'm an intern. And I'm at this time, this is after grad school. I went to UCF to be an intern. And yeah, man, he's like, look, he's lived in Toronto at the time, 6-time NBA All-Star. He's looking for a young guy to train him, just like to traveling around the world with him. And I'm like, this is crazy. You know what I'm saying? And I ended up taking the job. But the more importantly thing, it wasn't about what I knew. It was how I carried myself. And they knew that I was ready for that moment just because of how I was. So I think a lot of times, and we talked about it, like everybody thinks it's all X and O's and anything in business and everything. It's like, yo, you have to know your stuff. Don't get it twisted. But the way you handle yourself, the way you can build a network, the way you can build camaraderie around people can take you a lot of places that, you know.
What you do when nobody's watching.
Exactly.
It's really what matters, because that speaks to true character for sure. So when you say you train them, elaborate a little bit on that. What it's at? Is it physical training? Is it personal training? Is it like around their endurance? Is it actual skill? What do you do with these athletes?
Yeah, so it's more like strength and conditioning. Exactly. So I have a strength and conditioning background. That's what I was doing as a GA, and I was a graduate assistant at VCU.
Gotcha.
And then, so yeah, it was more of like in the weight room.
You worked at VCU.
Yep. I was a graduate. So I went to grad school at.
Nice. Was it when they had their good?
So they went to the Final Four.
Yeah.
And then Smart left. So my year as a GA was Smart's first year at Texas.
Got it.
And then the new staff came in. I was part of that new staff.
So you're part of rebuild in that sense. All right, cool. Let's fast forward to kind of what you do now. Obviously, so you trained with Kyle Lowry. I know you trained other athletes. You mentioned to me that you've been online coaching probably for a little over a year now. At what point did you decide, okay, it's time for me to maybe take this to the next level? What was the reason behind it? Maybe, add a little bit of value on that part.
So one thing about training athletes, once you get to that like elite level of like the pinnacle of training it, you get to a point where you start to feel like, yo, you're helping somebody that has it all. And there's nothing wrong with that, but that just didn't sit right with me. I'm like, there are more people who need me. At this time, Kyle's on a $30 million contract. So it's like, this is great, but like there are people who can literally use my resources not only to, make more money, but to change their life completely,
Right.
And that's what I felt like I was missing. So I was like, what can I do? Obviously my time was tied down to training NBA players, but I was like, I want to build something that can literally help people every single day, regardless if you work at Publix or you're a CEO. Like, I know I have something special. I know my presence. I know I can coach, and I can get people to become that person they truly want to become.
Yeah. Then you get to move the needle a lot more for sure with somebody who's maybe not a professional athlete, because the improvement that, and you correct me if I'm wrong here, but the improvement that you could help a professional athlete who's been doing this for a living their entire life, it's not the same as a regular Joe Schmo that comes into your coaching program. Is that kind of the main
Yeah, exactly. It's like I said, it's not the same. You're not going to get this, you're not going to feel the same. I always tell people, when you train NBA athletes or NFL, it doesn't really matter. If you remove yourself, their show still goes on. You're there to help, you're there to assist, but their show still goes on. There's no better feeling than having people in my program that literally feel like, my coach, I need him. I need him to show me the way to lose the weight, to get the better mentality, whatever it is, I need it. And that's where I do my best work, because I know they're relying on me to perform.
All right. Let's talk strictly from a business standpoint, because everything, you're fortunate enough to follow your passion, to truly follow your passion, and not have to kind of reinvent, because a lot of us had to figure out what we liked and then kind of find a vehicle and mold our passion around the vehicle. You literally love sports your entire life. You got to go right into that field, and then obviously help a lot of people. But there's also the business side to this, right? Because everything is not rainbows and butterflies. And yes, you landed that gig with Kyle Lowry, which I'm assuming probably was life-changing, at least from a business standpoint. Sure. But it's hard to scale anything. And I guess what's the biggest challenge as a businessman? Not with the coaching and getting people to buy in and all those other things that we'll get to, but as a business person, what has been the biggest challenge that you face in trying to operate a business and run a business, and obviously kind of make sure people know your worth and your value?
I think you really just answered the question. With the ending of the question is trying to get people to understand the value of what you're actually saying, what you're actually doing. I think nowadays, especially when it comes to training and eating, there's so much information out there that it's hard to separate yourself. And the only way to separate yourself is to do things that most people wouldn't do. And sometimes that's honesty, like just being honest. Like I've been called a fat shamer, I've been called arrogant, but people don't understand one of my results are the best results in the world because I'm honest and I tell the truth. And I tell people, hey, look, it's not fat shaming or being arrogant. I just know how to get people to move.
100%.
If you're, everything's great, get participation trophies, those people don't never win. The people who come to me are like, yo, this dude is honest. He's being straightforward. He's realistic. That's why. So I think the hardest thing is showing the value and separating yourself from, everybody else, what everybody else is trying to say in the masses. And that sometimes you got to go and, on the other side and step on a couple of toes, but out of love. You know what I'm saying? At the end of the day, is I know what people want. I spoke on this today on my story. I said, there's a lot of times I have a consultation call and people want me to convince them to change their life. And I said, like, you booked the call.
It's not your job, yeah.
Yeah, you booked the call, so you obviously know, you know what I'm saying? But they're trying to have me explain the value in what I do for them. And I tell them all the time, sometimes I can't explain it. You have to actually go through the program and you will realize your life will change, like me and you spoke about, doing different things.
Let's walk through this program, right? So do you work one-on-one with your clients? Do you have a team that works with the clients? What are clients getting when they when they join your program?
So it's me and my girlfriend. She works with the women in the program. I work with most of the men and all the men. And so the first thing is I ask everybody on Discovery Call, who do you envision yourself wanting to become?
Okay.
We're starting from there because I can lead you somewhere, but if you don't want to become that person, then what does it matter? So everybody wants to be in shape. Everybody wants more money. Everybody wants relationships. So they want all these types of things. So I ask them, being in the best shape of your life, having the most mental clarity you ever had, and your confidence as high as it ever been, do you think those things align with the 3 things that you said you wanted, 4 or 5 things?
Right.
Everybody says yes.
Absolutely.
Because that's what humans want.
100%.
Humans want, like regardless, you want to say, you want to feel confident, you want more money, and you want relationships. You want to have a community surrounded by people. People don't want to be loners. They don't. That's just not the way we are. You want to operate around like-minded people. So once those get answered, okay. So when you get into a program, obviously you're gonna get your workout program, you're gonna all that. But the main thing is macros are everything, and we really truly teach people the science of food in macros. Now, I say that to say that this isn't about food. it's about understanding how it works. So there's discipline comes in there, mental clarity comes in there. You're making daily decisions, you're changing your habits because you understand how it works. So those things just start to bleed into the rest of your life. Like I have a lot of people who used to party, used to drink all the time. And when all of a sudden they have these numbers and parameters to hit, all of a sudden those things don't fit no more. Right. And that's what I'm doing. I'm literally building a fort around people and saying, hey, look, if we stay in this fort, there's so many things that can't come inside this fort because there's no room for it. So I'm literally building a surrounding around people where they would have to go out their way to go back to their old habits. So there's so many things, like I said, I can go on about the program, but it's built around fitness, nutrition, accountability, and mindset.
Okay. How do you get to, and obviously we talked about people needing to be ready to be coached because you can't force somebody to want to change their life. But obviously in the business you're in, you want people to have results at the end of the day. And I'm assuming you do everything in your power to get them there. What are some of the things that you try to get people to understand, because you can force them again, to make sure that they follow through with the program and to make sure that they're actually locking in, is it accountability? You spoke about that, but what other things do you think you can help with folks who maybe are struggling with doing things the right way?
I mean, I think one thing that I try to do is, I try to live my life in a certain way for my clients. And I think that is the best thing I can possibly do. Is I do a lot of things, and you may see a lot of things on my social media, and it's not for the person who may not want to be in my program. Right. A lot of stuff I do is for that person that I know is in my program that's struggling. I can see everything they're doing, and I can see that they're falling off the wagon, and I'm saying something, and I'm speaking to them, and I'm speaking to their heart. You told me you wanted to do this. You said you want to do this for your family. You said you want to do this for your wife. You said you want to do this for your son. Is that not worth it anymore? You know what I'm saying? So there's certain ways that, you find your ways to talk to people. But one thing I have realized has been the biggest struggle for me is I can't want it for more than the people want it for themselves. And that hurts.
100%.
Because, it's like you can see somebody and you can want to give them the world, man. Like I see it in you. But until that person really wants to become that person that they say they want to become, it's going to be difficult for you.
How do you deal with that struggle? Because I've dealt with it in my own regard, obviously, with folks that we bring to work with us. But because sometimes, at least me personally, I'll speak from experience, something that seems very basic or simple to me, such as, like in my case, working to get paid. In your case, it's like, well, you say you wanted to lose weight, just don't eat the damn slice of pizza. It's not that hard. It took me a long time. It really did take me a long time to understand that everybody doesn't think like me. And that if everybody thought like me, then everybody would beat me, and then I wouldn't exist almost to that extent. Obviously, my case is a little different than yours, but how do you deal personally with the frustration or the long, like, and I see her nodding her head. So she probably wants to answer for it, because I know she probably deals with the same thing. But how do you deal with that, like with the stress and the frustration of people, and because you're taking on a lot of weight, Travis. Like it's I could tell how passionate you are, and it's not about the money. It's more like the frustration of you want them to change their lives, and they told you they wanted to, and you know what it means to them because they've told you that already in your discovery call, and then you see them falling off the wagon. How do you deal with that? Because that's got to be hard. That's
a great question, man. It is extremely hard, but it's one thing you said I want to answer before I say that. When they're on that call, when that person gives me that investment, I always say this. As soon as they give you the investment, I say, listen, your investment doesn't change my life. It doesn't. But you changing your life has the ability to change my life. And I think when people hear me say that, and I'm telling the truth, if you pay me, I'm not gonna go move to Bora Bora. That's not what it is. I don't just retire like that. So it's like, but what moves the needle for me is more people like you doing what I asked of you, so you can become that person, and that's how more people flow my way. So my biggest thing is I tell them, like, your success is my success. So I'm gonna do whatever I can in my power to do what I can do for you. And our program is we have a year program, but we are known for 100 days. All of our results are in 100 days that are posted on my Instagram. So this is a complete like reinvention of the person. And when they leave 100 days, they can literally go do what I taught them for the rest of their life. So it's extremely frustrating because I'm asking, especially for men, I'm like, for 100 days, you can't lock in. Yeah. Like that's scary to me, bro. For 100 days, you can't tell yourself for 100 days, I'm not going to the club. I'm not going to drink. I'm not going to party. I'm eliminating all these distractions because there's something that I want. And what's going to come when you eliminate those things? Your business is going to grow. Your body's going to grow. Your mind's going to enhance. Those are all things that you want, right? So I think that's what hurts me more. It's like the body is just going to become the byproduct of that. Everything else you're going to have is going to expand if you eliminate the distractions. So for me, it's the most frustrating for men. I know she deals with women, but for men, as a man, like for 100 days, you can't say no to things.
And I've been there, bro. You know, and some of the darkest days of my life, Travis, was because you come to the self-realization eventually that you're just fucking up and doing shit wrong. But changing those habits is so hard. And sometimes it seems so simple. And you've been a high-performing athlete. And I mean, I played sports growing up, but I'm 5'9", and I'm lucky to, not that fast or strong or can't jump high. So, and I went through that. And for me, it took having my son. You know, that was kind of like the I guess the turning point in my life when eventually I just got over my own shit and said, well, I'm gonna do everything that I'm supposed to do, no bullshit. And I started waking up at 4 o'clock in the morning. Changed 2022, I woke up at 3:50 in the morning every single day. I had to be a legacy fed in the Doral. By 5 a.m., I live up north. So I was
shout out to my man Manny.
So I used to go to the only one that was that is to this day the only franchise. I know the whole story, but love the concept of the gym and it's hard. It's hard for on this side for somebody who struggle with that, and people really are in a mental funk. That's what I like to say, man. And what you do is so important because I'm big on self-development. I've paid every training program you could think of. And until I was ready, it didn't matter. You know, but every little thing that I grabbed from each one eventually compounded to it making a huge difference in my life. And then there's a flip side to the question I asked you, right? Because I just asked you what the frustration is. But then my follow-up question would be, how rewarding is it when you see people change their lives? Because those are the ones that I'm assuming keep you going and make all the ones that don't change your lives almost worth it. So speak to that. How rewarding is it when you see somebody, you know, follow through and now you're seeing all these things come to fruition, not just physically, but their businesses, their families, their relationship, everything. Because everything aligns. It's kind of like the stars align and all of a sudden all the shit you ever wanted becomes true. And it's in the snap of your, in the snap of your fingers. How rewarding is that?
I think what makes it so rewarding is I personally know, and I say this publicly, there's not a dollar amount I could put on it. There's not. So whatever my program is going for that day, it's undervalued. Every time, I mean, you know, you change your life. So if somebody were to coach you and they put you in the position you are right now from where you were, what is that worth? And that's my biggest reward. It's like every time somebody goes to my program, I want the end of the program for them to say, that's what I paid? Are you kidding me? Like, and that's what we have. The people who actually finish are like, I know this information for the rest of my life. Like, you set me up to just, the 100 days was just a runway. And we have people after 100 days who stay on hey, look, can I do it again? Can I do it again? You know, and they do it again. But it's just like, it's so rewarding to see. I mean, we've had clients who've had not abortions, but miscarriages, and like thought life was completely over. You know what I'm saying? It was just like, just fell out of love with themselves. I've had clients where she has 2 kids and her husband's a basketball coach at a big time Division I university, and she's constantly cooking for the team. She's doing all this. She gave herself 100 days. She got in the best shape of her life in her late 30s. You know, so it's like those types of things that like I can't put a price on it. One of my clients he had a divorce, went deep down, and we climbed it back up, got in the best shape of his life, and got his confidence back. So you get to those things, man, like there's no price tag on it. It's just the reward is just seeing that person just say thank you. Like, I appreciate you. You changed my life. And we're not only changing that person's life. If you change a man's life who has a kid, you change that kid's life.
100%.
And that's what people don't realize. It's going to trickle down.
Entire lineage,
his dad is a different person now. His dad is a completely different person.
I mean, you grew up without that basically the majority of your childhood, and you know the impact that having and not having. I think you got to live both, which is tough. I want to change the topic a little bit because I didn't know you run your business with your girlfriend who's here. But my wife is involved in my business, and that dynamic can be very interesting, to say the least. In my case, we do different things. You know, like I am really good at bringing in revenue. I'm great at a lot of things. I am really unorganized and messy. I've gotten a lot better. That was kind of part of the things of getting over your own shit and improving on the things that you need to improve on. But we really don't cross paths that much, at least in a day-to-day. You guys are literally, from my understanding, basically doing the same thing, male, female. What's it like working with your significant other? How challenging and how rewarding is it? I'll ask you a loaded question there, but you could speak to that a little bit because I think that dynamic's really interesting. And a lot of people don't get to do that.
I don't know if that was a you problem. I think it's a man problem. I think we're just like unorganized. You know what I'm saying? That's the best thing that having her like
change her life because she organized shit for you.
I'm the guy. Listen, man. Put the client in front of my face. For the person, the potential client in front of my face, I'm gonna close them. I'm gonna bring them to the team. I'm gonna change their life. She'll figure out how we're gonna get them there, how we're gonna get in the funnel, how they're gonna get the email. Yeah. Like she'll figure all that. My biggest thing is just put them in front of me, let them meet me, and I'm gonna change their life, and I'm gonna execute every single time. So I think that is it. And one thing that I've learned is kind of like what she does with her clients, she understands how we call it the formula. She understands the formula, but I don't get into what she does with them. It's just like I want her to feel like, yes, like she has her own, portion of it where, she's the boss of her own stuff. So that's the kind of where we do a lot of stuff together, but it is separated in a way in terms if you were to get deep down into the business. We are definitely we coach each other and things like that. Like my thing for her is just like, post more content. Women need to hear you. Like she had a crazy transformation. And I think that, sometimes it's difficult. I think sometimes it's difficult, and just speak on this, like, I think for a man, I'll say anything because, but when it comes to a woman, sometimes it's like, I don't want them to feel it's completely different. I understand that, you know what I'm saying? But I always tell her, like, she has a message that can change people's lives. And you just have to say it. Like, you already believe she had a hip replacement at 25. Like, probably the youngest person in the world to have hip replacement playing tennis. But it's like, if you did what you did and got back to where you were on a hip replacement, like there are people who have a sprained ankle who's just like, oh man, like, like it's just telling your story and continuing to share your message and change, and help change the world. So those are the things that were probably like,
those are the rewarding things. Tell me about the challenging parts.
Those are things. What are our challenging parts, man? I mean, and
you guys got a lot of
it's funny. It's funny. Manning, no, seriously, it was on another podcast.
I saw it, yeah.
And he asked the same question, and I promise you, I wish I had something to say, but like, we don't really have any, I spend too much money, I would say. Yeah. Maybe that, like in the business.
Yeah, but that's more of a
really exactly. So exactly. No, in the business, like maybe that, but like,
gotcha.
It's just so much of a team, bro. And I'm not even just saying this because she's here. It's just so much of a team. She knows every decision I make is for the best interest, not only for us but for people. Like we talked about coaching. Yeah. Like I may go spend a crazy amount on some coaching and tell, hey, look, so I just spent $20,000 to this coaching program because I was on a webinar.
Yeah.
And she's like, what? But like, she knows I'm not doing it for me. Like the better I become,
100% is all for the
better the business becomes.
Honestly, I suffer of the same problem.
Yeah.
The worst thing that happened to me, well, it's the best worst thing. I said this in a video the other day. There's an entrepreneur with money. It's a very dangerous thing because now you really want to develop and now you start trying every single thing you ever wanted. I had a 22 to 23, 800% year over year growth in revenue. That's when I went from like playing businessman to like, okay, shit, I got some money. I could actually like get a bigger office. And bro, that's when I started paying for every program because I always thought the excuse was money. And my mind is, if I have the money to do this, I'm good. And it turns out it was never the money. It was all right here. But yeah, dude, I've paid $10,000 more times than I can count to do a training for something that I did not do a thing. And the worst part is that once I paid the money, on the first, on the onboarding call, I'm like, this is not what I thought it was going to be.
That's all the time.
Yeah, I did a personal training one, and I'm like, I speak to it. There's a former NFL guy that never even played in the NFL, but I looked him up, so I fact checked him. And they were speaking to business people. If you don't have time to work out, I'm like, this guy is speaking to me. I get on the...
Alex Hermosi on you right there, man. Come on, man.
I paid the 10 G's. I get on my first call with a personal trainer, and macros, lifting program. I'm like, well, I could have done this shit on my own. I could have just hired a trainer here in Miami to do that for me.
They didn't really.
And then they did what they said they were going to do. They gave me a workout program and they gave me a diet. But in my mind, I'm like, this guy's got the secret for me to get in shape. And it turns out there was no secret. I just need to get my head out of my ass. But
it's something that you want to say about that. And like I said, I pay for coaching like no other. I'm just like you. Yeah. But I think it'd be more of a detriment to me and probably you if you don't pay, because you're always thinking like, man, there's something I don't know. Let me know that there's not something I don't know, that there's just something I'm not doing or I'm not giving myself permission to go do. And I think that has what like my life has like escalated or enhanced, so to say, is because I paid to teach myself it's in here. And some people are sitting here every single day, like holding on to every dollar. And it's like, if you just pay, all of a sudden things may click for you. And you're like, oh man, I do know it. I do feel it. I've always, it's just the saying I say, give yourself permission, man. 100%. The day you give yourself permission to spend money, to invest money, to build a business, to say what you want to say, that's when everything changes.
100%. And there's no such thing as a loss. Because me spending, and I mean, this is one scenario of many, but me spending those 10 grand made me realize that there was nothing in the world that was going to make me lose weight other than me just changing my mindset. And that $10,000 investment paid off. Because if I wouldn't have paid it, I'd still probably be here today, 50 pounds heavier, saying when I have the 10 grand to pay that guy, I'm going to lose weight. So yeah, for sure, I think self-development is probably the biggest thing. I mean, I talk to people every single day, Travis, that tell me like, I want to grow my business. I want to do more. I'm like, dude, you got to work on yourself. You know, there's not one way to do things from a business standpoint. I've interviewed 100 different industries in my life that I've talked to people. I'm very nosy and very curious when it comes to business. And everybody did it differently. I've had the guy that says save every dollar. I've had the guy that says spend every dollar. You know, and everybody kind of finds their own way, but the one common denominator has been self-development. They got to a point where they had a clear vision, where they went paying, they talk about paying the price. Paying the price no longer feels like you're paying the price because it's just like the natural trade-off of getting to where you want to get to. And I think there's a part that people fail the most. You know, even when they go to coaching, and I don't know if you see this as a coach, probably, I went for coaching for the wrong reasons. And through going through coaching is when I realized that it was for the wrong reason, which ended up kind of paying off. But the faster we can get people there, you know, I think this idea of this podcast as a whole is the whole thing is our mindset. You could watch every episode I've ever done, and the comment is almost like down to a T. I was doing things like this, and then I changed my mind, and then it worked out. You know, and then obviously the X's and O's, they're different based on the business, but the substance, the foundation of it all starts with your mind, dude.
I just have a question for you. So my question is, if you were to teach somebody what you built, right? Could they figure it out on their own?
There's nothing I can tell them that they cannot figure out.
But that's it though. There's nothing that you can't. Now, speed is everything.
100%.
Speed is everything. I have a business coach, and I would have probably never wrote a book in my life. And I've always wanted to do it. I probably would have never wrote a book. I got a business coach. 6 weeks. I wrote my first book. Just because sitting down with him, explaining to me concepts, what to do with the concept, like
it slows down the game, bro. Obviously, I use the sports analogy, but it's like when you first got to D1, for sure, shit was moving quick. And then after a while, you kind of find your footing. Coaching's changed my life too. I have a business coach, and yeah, she's literally put things into perspective. She changed literally. That's one that did change my life. Not my business, my personal life. Starting with I thought I was confident. I wasn't confident. You know what I mean? Like I would explain things. I had the worst habit. I would tell you an idea, but instead of telling you what the idea is, I'll tell you why I had the idea. And one day she just stopped me cold turkey on my tracks and said, "Why you keep explaining things to me?" And I'm like, I try to brush it off. And no, because the idea is good. And she said, no, let's unpack it. Why are you explaining shit to me so much? Turns out I had fear of being judged by her thinking that my idea was stupid. She said, you pay me. Tell me a freaking idea. I'll tell you if I think it's good or bad. And whatever explanation you give is not going to change my decision on my opinion on the idea. And I just told you the short version of the story. This was like a 1 hour conversation that almost brought me down to tears. But she broke me to that point and it built me back up. And then I'm like, why do I care what people think? You know, I think that was probably the biggest, you know, I've gone through levels of transitions in my life, Travis, where like my first breakthrough, my kid, then I made a pivot in the business that helped me blow up. That was the latest one, is I started being comfortable in my own way of being. You know, I wanted to imagine you project your voice really well. You're this, you could speak publicly. I would kill myself trying to sound like you. I'm never going to sound like you. And she made me understand that. She's like, you're smart. You've done a lot of things that a lot of people don't do. Why do you want to be like somebody else? And that's literally changed my life. That's when I started getting in front of a camera. I'm just going to do me.
Be yourself.
And the people that relate to me will relate, and the ones that don't. And nothing that I can ever do is going to change that. And it made my life so much easier. I don't even know why I'm going down this rabbit hole with you. But
because, bro, I'm all for that, bro. And what she did, I don't know what she charged, and I don't really care what she charged. But if you told me a price after hearing you speak, there's nothing that I would say.
There's not a price tag on it.
There's not. There's not.
There isn't, you know? And I can have plenty of examples like that. And the other thing is you get to a point, at least I did, growing too fast is not always, I mean, it's everybody's dream, but it's not necessarily the best thing. And I had a ceiling where I was the best one around me. And I was seeking like information. And I knew a few guys that were more successful than me, but I had to like kind of bug them a little bit, like give me a time of day and let's go to lunch. And it got to a point where I was kind of on cruise control. And I knew that I wanted to make more money because, yes, I had changed my life and my family's life short term, but I need the shit to last for fucking 30 years and generations to come, not for 5 years, you know? And coaching did that. So anybody watching, if you're in a business, you need a business coach. And there's not a price tag. And you need to do it. You know, and if you can afford one-on-one lessons and go into a group setting until you can afford it, because it will help you. But with that being said, talk to me about this book. Reinvention is a requirement. So kind of like your mantra from what I see. You did mention kind of like your coach helped you come up with the inspiration, but talk a little bit about the book. What will we find in the book when we read it? And the inspiration behind it. I'd love to know it.
So one thing, main reason with the book is, I come from a physical standpoint. Like people are like, hey, like I go to this page, I see all these transformations, everybody's changing their, changing the way they look. And I'm like, that's just the surface level, man. There's something going on in their head, in their heart of making them do this change. And I was like, you know what? So he's like, let's write a book about it. And I just did not know where to start. I'm like, well, what do I say? He's like, don't speak on the body. Like break down the processes of what is going through their mind. Once again.
Yeah.
And I'm just like,
it's one of those moments that made the entire investment worth it, right?
Exactly. Like that's worth it. It's already worth it. You know what I'm saying? And he's like, what happens? And I'm like, well, there's stages. Like first you got to rewire your brain. He's like, all right. So I'm like, yeah, rewire your brain. And like, what does that consist of? So I talk about all this in a book, and I'm just like, and this is like one of these books where you actually like write down. It's like a journaling type of thing. So it's not one of those. Yeah. It's not one of those you just read the book and you put it back in the, in the bookshelf. It's like, no, it's going to challenge you. So it talks about rewiring your brain. Like, what does it take to rewire your brain? Like, how do you rewire your brain? How do you see yourself? How do you view yourself? Like, you start writing this book, your hands start shaking because you're really answering truthfully how you feel about yourself and what you think about yourself. And then what is the promise? So the second one will be recommit. Like, how do you recommit to yourself? How do you recommit to your promises? Like, what are you going to do for that commitment? And I have 5 non-negotiables that I live by every single day. One is win my alarm. I'm going to win my alarm every single morning. The reason I'm going to win my alarm every single morning because if I don't, I lied to myself. I told myself a promise the night before and I didn't do it. So every day at 4:45, our alarms go off, we jump up. And the reason we do that is because I'm not about to start off my day off doing something where I told myself I wasn't going to do. Second is win the workout. And then I speak on this. I say, working out is not, you got to go to the gym and bench 315 every time. No, it could be going for a walk. It could be meditation. It can be all those types of things that just make yourself feel good. So I talk about, I'm going to win the workout every single day. Then I'm going to win the meal. And when I say win the meal, I mean like, I'm going to put things in my body that I know is going to produce the best Travis. That's going to keep my mind clear. So that's why I teach macros to the T, because the more I am dialed in on my macros, the more I think clearly, the more I can distribute myself to people. I'm just more locked in. And then the fourth is win the battle against my ego, which I think is huge. And this goes back into coaching, man. Like, people won't get a coach because of their ego. Like if you're somebody like, oh, I can just do it myself, or I can be getting in shape, I can do it myself. It's like you could, but somehow you haven't done it. You haven't.
Why are you here?
So why are we here? And it's like, because you need somebody to help you and guide you and show you the way. And I think a lot of times we struggle with that. So for me, from a business standpoint, it's like, let me go get a business coach. I don't know everything about business. Like, I don't think I was going to be able to write this on my own. But me putting my ego aside, removing it and saying, hey, look, I need help. Help me. I want to expand my business. How do I do it? I want to scale. How do I do that? And one thing, speaking on remove my ego, he put to me is like, don't come from a personal trainer, MBA, like make a concept. And that separated me from everybody training. There's no Travis Wallace Fit. There's no T-Wall Fitness. It's like, no, this is the formula because reinvention is a requirement. And it's just like a completely different outlook how people look at it. And then the last one is win the decision to be my best version. And if I take care of all 4 of those,
the fifth one happens.
Yeah. So we talk about rewiring the brain. We talk about recommitting. We talk on reinventing yourself, actually going through the process of reinventing yourself. And the 4th step is repeat the cycle. And that's what the NBA players do. They rewire their brain every single season, no matter if they won a championship or not. Kyle won a championship the next year. We was up at 4 a.m. training. It didn't matter because I want to give everything I have to what I'm trying to do. So I treat every person in there like they're an NBA All-Star, NBA champion. You're gonna rewire your brain. You're gonna recommit to your promise. What's your promise? What are you trying to do? 30 pounds? Okay, why? Why is this important to you? Then we're going to actually do the reinvention process. We're actually going to eat the macros. We're actually going to work out. We're actually going to wake up every morning. We're actually going to hold each other accountable, and we're going to repeat that cycle. The best part about repeating the cycle is no matter how elevated you become, you got to rewire your brain again. So for me and you to go to the next step of our life, of our business, we can't go as this person.
100%.
This person can't do it. I love to say this because I speak on identity, and I speak on like the reason reinvention is a requirement is because you're trying to create an elite identity in your business and in yourself. So if people have identity crisis, it's because the person you are here and the person you want to become, there's this big gap. And we got to close that gap. And that's all identity crisis. It's in between. So I speak on like becoming that person you truly want to become, building that business you truly want to build. And for me and you to do that, just speaking here, we got to become the next version of ourselves, because the Travis I am right now has maxed out. Mm-hmm. Because if he could do something right now, he would have already done it.
You'd be doing it. You got to kind of reinvent yourself, literally.
My man.
Literally. And I think, part of the reinvention, and I keep speaking personally because obviously I relate to this a lot, but, a lot of people like to buy into the process to the parts they're comfortable with. So if you're like a fitness guy and you like weight training, then going to the gym is easy for you. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden, if your goal is to work out at 5 a.m., you're there every single day because you're excited. But when it's time to read a book, even if that's part of your thing that you're not comfortable with, all of a sudden that's the part you struggle with. And one of the biggest things that I try to do is, so the path of most resistance, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. I wire my brain to do shit the hard way. Mm-hmm. Because I know if I go with the path of most resistance, whatever I want is going to become easy. Mm-hmm. And I say this now, probably a good 5 years into my personal development journey, so to speak. And what I discovered through coaching, through my business coach, is that exactly what you just said. There are levels to unlock that you don't even see right now. When I went to this acquisition.com, I'm thinking that's one of many. I was in Dubai. I got to travel a little bit too, which was nice, but I went to a marketing conference because that's kind of like part of the business that I'm trying to get really good at. It's marketing. So I'm always seeking knowledge. But when I walked in there, I walked out of there with levels of vision that I did not see. What I explained to you before we started, how you could peel the onion, so many more layers. And I've read this in the books, but it had to be, and that's why I like to get into rooms. I'm not a big talker. I'm a big listener. I'm in the room, I'm just peeping how people move. The moment I walked in and I just saw how they moved, that to me was already worth it. Yeah, all the other stuff I learned that I should get more agents for more, that's all stuff that I eventually would have learned. And I do agree speed is important, so it probably saved me some time. But just seeing how people move. And this is so good, bro, because it does take reinvention. Because the Travis that got to the Travis today is not, to your point, it's not the Travis going to get you to the next level.
Yeah, he would already done it. Right. He definitely.
How do you get a copy of this for folks that are watching?
We actually, there's a link in my Instagram bio, the Travis Wallace. There's a link in there, theformula.com. You can also go to and purchase a book. But like I said, a lot of people aren't ready for, this big physical and mindset transformation. It's like, just pick up a book and just see where you're at. See how you view yourself,
It's a good measuring stick.
And exactly. And that's just a place to start. And people who buy the book, it's not like I expect them to always be like, hey, you're going to be my client. No, I want you to realize like reinvention is a requirement. And the reason that I use physical as a vehicle is because when you can see yourself physically changing, there's a power in that, man. There's a power in that of realizing like, I'm doing things that I normally don't do or normally wouldn't do, and I'm changing. I'm feeling better. And that's why I want people, same thing with business. It's the same concept, the same formula, so to say. It's like, start doing things that you aren't doing right now that'll help you. You'll literally start seeing. So I just love how the body is just like something that
that's awesome.
You can look in the mirror and just see. That. You can literally see it.
I love that. Travis, if you had to give one advice to a person that is struggling, whether that's physically, mentally, or both, what would that advice be besides becoming your client?
If I had to give one bit of advice is, man, I think I spoke on it. I know I speak a lot on it, but it's like you said, it's knowing that there's layers, man. It's knowing there's layers. And I think the story is usually your ticket.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people hold their story against them, but the story is your ticket to become that person. And one thing that like, your story's going to resonate with somebody, and those are going to be your people who resonate. A lot of people that come to me they didn't have a father, or, they former athletes, they lost their identity. And like that becomes a part of my story that
100%.
may have been the worst moments of my life. So if people are at the bottom, if you can climb your way out, starting with personal development, just with yourself, it could be reading books, just starting that and building yourself out of it. There's going to be some part of that story that you're going through right now that's going to literally be your ticket to save somebody and help somebody else.
It's awesome, dude. To wrap up here, I asked the same question to every single person on the podcast. And we'll go back to when you were probably 22 years old, just quit playing ball. You're in your mom's basement working at Home Depot. If you could go back to that Travis and give him one advice, knowing what you know now, what would that advice be?
I think I would have told myself to give myself permission earlier to do something special. Like, I think a lot of times, like I said, people don't give themselves permission. And I'm glad the story went the way it went
100%.
because obviously, but to answer your question, I think I would have told myself earlier to give myself permission, and what comes with giving yourself permission is it comes with a lot, and it's not worrying about what other people think, what other people say about you. It's like, those are people who don't give themselves permission to be great. And I was talking in the car on the way here. I said, the people who've done the greatest things are the people who get hated on the most. Like 100%. It is what it is. You can go to the Bible, you talk about Jesus, you talk about LeBron James, you can talk about whoever you want to talk, Tiger Woods, you can go down the list.
100%.
And it's like the people who've actually made a stamp on this earth and whatever they're trying to do. Gandhi was hated. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was trying to spin world peace. It's like, you have to accept that, understand that it comes with it. And I think a lot of times people try to run from it. And it's like, well, you can't be elite if you're running from what people think and what people are going to say about you.
The highest level of stress that a man or woman can take, the more successful they'll be. I didn't come up with that. I read it somewhere. But it really resonated with me. And bro, that was beautifully answered. Travis, I want to thank you for taking the time. I know that you obviously have a busy schedule, and Miami traffic's no joke. So you made the drive down here for sunny out. So we appreciate you, bro. I think you provided tremendous value, dude.
Appreciate you having me, man.
I would say, if not the best, for sure, like top 2. I gotta think on this, but you provided tremendous value. I love what you're doing. And I think you're gonna keep impacting a lot of lives, dude. And hopefully we touch one today with this podcast.
I appreciate you, boss.
My brother.